BBC. The British Broadcasting Corporation (BBC) is the national broadcaster of the United Kingdom. Headquartered at Broadcasting House in London, it is the world's oldest national broadcaster and the largest broadcaster in the world by number of employees, employing over 22,000 staff in total, of whom more than 19,000 are in public sector broadcasting. The total number of BBC staff amounts to 35,402, including part-time, flexible, and fixed contract staff. The BBC is established under a royal charter and operates under its agreement with the Secretary of State for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. Its work is funded principally by an annual television license fee which is charged to all British households, companies and organizations using any type of equipment to receive or record live television broadcasts, and iPlayer catch-up. The fee is set by the British government, agreed by Parliament, and is used to fund the BBC Radio, TV, and online services covering the nations and regions of the UK. Since 1 April 2014, it has also funded the BBC World Service, launched in 1932 as the BBC Empire Service, which broadcasts in 28 languages and provides comprehensive TV, radio, and online services in Arabic and Persian. Around a quarter of BBC revenue comes from its commercial subsidiary BBC Studios, formerly BBC Worldwide, which sells BBC programs and services internationally and also distributes the BBC International 24-hour English language news services BBC World News, and from BBC Com, provided by BBC Global News Ltd. In 2009, the company was awarded the Queen's Award for Enterprise in recognition of its international achievements. From its inception through the Second World War, where its broadcasts helped to unite the nation, to the popularisation of television in the post-World War II era and the Internet in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the BBC has played a prominent role in British life and culture. It is also known colloquially as the Beeb, Auntie, or a combination of both as Auntie Beeb. History. The birth of British broadcasting, 1920 to 1922. Britain's first live public broadcast was made from the factory of Marconi's Wireless Telegraph Company in Chelmsford in June 1920. It was sponsored by the Daily Mail's Lord Northcliffe and featured the famous Australian soprano Dame Nellie Melba. The Melba broadcast caught the people's imagination and marked a turning point in the British public's attitude to radio. However, this public enthusiasm was not shared in official circles where such broadcasts were held to interfere with important military and civil communications. By late 1920, pressure from these quarters and uneasiness among the staff of the licensing authority, the General Post Office (GPO), was sufficient to lead to a ban on further Chelmsford broadcasts. But by 1922, the GPO had received nearly 100 broadcast license requests and moved to rescind its ban in the wake of a petition by 63 wireless societies with over 3,000 members. Anxious to avoid the same chaotic expansion experienced in the United States, the GPO proposed that it would issue a single broadcasting license to a company jointly owned by a consortium of leading wireless receiver manufacturers, to be known as the British Broadcasting Company Limited. John Reith, a Scottish Calvinist, was appointed its general manager in December 1922, a few weeks after the company made its first official broadcast. L. Stanton Jeffries was its first director of music. The company was to be financed by a royalty on the sale of BBC wireless receiving sets from approved domestic manufacturers. To this day, the BBC aims to follow the Reithian directive to inform, educate, and entertain. From private company towards public service corporation, 1923 to 1926, the financial arrangements soon proved inadequate. Set sales were disappointing as amateurs made their own receivers and listeners bought rival unlicensed sets. By mid-1923, discussions between the GPO and the BBC had become deadlocked, and the Postmaster General commissioned a review of broadcasting by the Sykes Committee. The committee recommended a short-term reorganization of license fees with improved enforcement in order to address the BBC immediate financial distress, and an increased share of the license revenue split between it and the GPO. This was to be followed by a simple 10 shillings license fee with no royalty once the wireless manufacturer's protection expired. The BBC broadcasting monopoly was made explicit for the duration of its current broadcast license, as was the prohibition on advertising. The BBC was also banned from presenting news bulletins before 1900 and was required to source all news from external wire services. Mid-Minus 1925 found the future of broadcasting under further consideration, this time by the Crawford Committee. By now, the BBC, under Reith's leadership, had forged a consensus favoring a continuation of the unified monopoly broadcasting service, but more money was still required to finance rapid expansion. Wireless manufacturers were anxious to exit the loss-making consortium, with Reith keen that the BBC be seen as a public service rather than a commercial enterprise. The recommendations of the Crawford Committee were published in March the following year, and were still under consideration by the GPO when the 1926 general strike broke out in May. The strike temporarily interrupted newspaper production, and with restrictions on news bulletins waived, the BBC suddenly became the primary source of news for the duration of the crisis. The crisis placed the BBC in a delicate position. On the one hand, Reith was acutely aware that the government might exercise its right to commandeer the BBC at any time as a mouthpiece of the government if the BBC were to step out of line, but on the other he was anxious to maintain public trust by appearing to be acting independently. The government was divided on how to handle the BBC, but ended up trusting Reith, whose opposition to the strike mirrored the PMO. Although Winston Churchill in particular wanted to commandeer the BBC to use it to the best possible advantage, Reith wrote that Stanley Baldwin's government wanted to be able to say that they did not commandeer the BBC, but they know that they can trust us not to be really impartial. Thus, the BBC was granted sufficient leeway to pursue the government's objectives largely in a manner of its own choosing. The resulting coverage of both striker and government viewpoints impressed millions of listeners who were unaware that the PM had broadcast to the nation from Reith's home, using one of Reith's sound bites inserted at the last moment, or that the BBC had banned broadcasts from the Labour Party and delayed a peace appeal by the Archbishop of Canterbury. Supporters of the strike nicknamed the BBC the BFC for British Falsehood Company. Reith personally announced the end of the strike, which he marked by reciting from Blake's Jerusalem, signifying that England had been saved. While the BBC tends to characterize its coverage of the general strike by emphasizing the positive impression created by its balanced coverage of the views of government and strikers, Jean Seaton, professor of media history and the official BBC historian, has characterized the episode as the invention of modern propaganda in its British form. Reith argued that trust gained by authentic impartial news could then be used. Impartial news was not necessarily an end in itself. The BBC did well out of the crisis, which cemented a national audience for its broadcasting, and it was followed by the government's acceptance of the recommendation made by the Crawford Committee 1925-26 that the British Broadcasting Company be replaced by a non-commercial, Crown-chartered organization, the British Broadcasting Corporation. 1927 to 1939. BBC versus other media. The success of broadcasting provoked animosities between the BBC and well-established media such as theatres, concert halls, and the recording industry. By 1929, the BBC complained that the agents of many comedians refused to sign contracts for broadcasting because they feared it harmed the artist by making his material stale, and that it reduces the value of the artist as a visible music hall performer. On the other hand, the BBC was keenly interested in a cooperation with the recording companies who in recent years have not been slow to make records of singers, orchestras, dance bands, etc., who have already proved their power to achieve popularity by wireless. Radio plays were so popular that the BBC had received 6,000 manuscripts by 1929, most of them written for stage and of little value for broadcasting. Day in and day out, manuscripts come in, and nearly all go out again through the post, with a note saying "we regret," etc. In the 1930s music broadcasts. Second World War. Television broadcasting was suspended from 1 September 1939 to 7 June 1946 during the Second World War, and it was left to BBC radio broadcasters such as Reginald Fort to keep the nation's spirits up. The BBC moved most of its radio operations out of London, initially to Bristol, and then to Bedford. Concerts were broadcast from the Corn Exchange, the Trinity Chapel in St. Paul's Church. Bedford was the studio for the daily service from 1941 to 1945, and in the darkest days of the war in 1941, the Archbishops of Canterbury and York came to St. Paul's to broadcast to the UK and all parts of the world on BBC. Employees during the war included George Orwell, who spent 2 years with the broadcaster. During his role as Prime Minister during the Second World War, Winston Churchill delivered 33 major wartime speeches by radio, all of which were carried by the BBC within the UK. On 18 June 1940, French General Charles de Gaulle, in exile in London as the leader of the Free French, made a speech broadcast by the BBC urging the French people not to capitulate to the Nazis. In 1938, John Reith and the British government, specifically the Ministry of Information, which had been set up for WW2, designed a censorship apparatus for the inevitability of war. Due to the BBC advancements in shortwave radio technology, the corporation could broadcast across the world during the Second World War. Within Europe, the BBC European Service would gather intelligence and information regarding the current events of the war in English. Regional BBC workers, based on their regional geopolitical climate, would then further censor the material their broadcasts would cover. Nothing was to be added outside the preordained news items. For example, the BBC Polish service was heavily censored due to fears of jeopardizing relations with the Soviet Union. Controversial topics, i.e. the contested Polish and Soviet border, the deportation of Polish citizens, the arrests of Polish Home Army members, and the Katyn massacre, were not included in Polish broadcasts. American radio broadcasts were broadcast across Europe on BBC channels. This material also passed through the BBC Censorship Office, which surveilled and edited American coverage of British affairs. By 1940, across all BBC broadcasts, music by composers from enemy nations was censored. In total, 99 German, 38 Austrian, and 38 Italian composers were censored. The BBC argued that, like the Italian or German languages, listeners would be irritated by the inclusion of enemy composers. Any potential broadcasters said to have pacifist, communist, or fascist ideologies were not allowed on the BBC airwaves. Later 20th century. There was a widely reported urban myth that, upon resumption of the BBC television service after the war, announcer Leslie Mitchell started by saying, "As I was saying before, we were so rudely interrupted, 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 interrupted." In fact, the first person to appear when transmission resumed was Jasmine Bligg, and the words said were, "Good afternoon, everybody, how are you? Do you remember me, Jasmine Bligg?" The European Broadcasting Union was formed on 12 February 1950 in Turkey, with the BBC among the 23 founding broadcasting organizations. Competition to the BBC was introduced in 1955 with the commercial and independently operated television network of ITV. However, the BBC monopoly on radio services would persist until 8 October 1973, when, under the control of the newly renamed Independent Broadcasting Authority (IBA), the UK's first independent local radio station, LBC, came on air in the London area. As a result of the Pilkington Committee report of 1962, in which the BBC was praised for the quality and range of its output, and ITV was very heavily criticized for not providing enough quality programming, the decision was taken to award the BBC a second television channel, BBC Two, in 1964, renaming the existing service BBC. BBC Two used the higher resolution 625-line standard which had been standardized across Europe. BBC Two was broadcast in color from 1 July 1967 and was joined by BBC and ITV on 15 November 1969. The 405-line VHF transmissions of BBC and ITV were continued for compatibility with older television receivers until 1985. Starting in 1964, a series of pirate radio stations, starting with Radio Caroline, came on the air and forced the British government finally to regulate radio services to permit nationally based advertising financed services. In response, the BBC reorganized and renamed their radio channels. On 30 September 1967, the Light program was split into Radio 1 offering continuous popular music and Radio 2 more easy listening. The third program became Radio 3 offering classical music and cultural programming. The home service became Radio 4 offering news and non-musical content such as quiz shows, readings, dramas, and plays. As well as the four national channels, a series of local BBC radio stations were established in 1967, including Radio London. In 1969, the BBC Enterprises Department was formed to exploit BBC brands and programs for commercial spin-off product. In 1979, it became a wholly owned limited company, BBC Enterprises Limited. In 1974, the BBC Teletext Service, CFAX, was introduced, created initially to provide subtitling, but developed into a news and information service. In 1978, BBC staff went on strike just before the Christmas, thus blocking out the transmission of both channels and amalgamating all four radio stations into one. Since the deregulation of the UK television and radio market in the 1980s, the BBC has faced increased competition from the commercial sector and from the advertiser-funded public service broadcaster Channel 4, especially on satellite television, cable television, and digital television services. In the late 1980s, the BBC began a process of divestment by spinning off and selling parts of its organization. In 1988, it sold off the Hulton Press Library, a photographic archive which had been acquired from the Picture Post magazine by the BBC in 1957. The archive was sold to Brian Deutsch and is now owned by Getty Images. During the 1990s, this process continued with the separation of certain operational arms of the corporation into autonomous but wholly owned subsidiaries, with the aim of generating additional revenue for program making. BBC Enterprises was reorganized and relaunched in 1995 as BBC Worldwide Limited. In 1998, BBC Studios, outside broadcasts, post-production, design, costumes, and wigs were spun off into BBC Resources Limited. The BBC Research Department has played a major part in the development of broadcasting and recording techniques. The BBC was also responsible for the development of the NICM stereo standard. In recent decades, a number of additional channels and radio stations have been launched. Radio 5 was launched in 1990 as a sports and educational station, but was replaced in 1994 with Radio 5 Live to become a live radio station, following the success of the Radio 4 service to cover the 1991 Gulf War. The new station would be a news and sports station. In 1997, BBC News 24, a rolling news channel, launched on digital television services, and the following year, BBC Choice was launched as the third general entertainment channel from the BBC. The BBC also purchased the Parliamentary Channel, which was renamed BBC Parliament. In 1999, BBC Knowledge launched as a multimedia channel, with services available on the newly launched BBC Text digital teletext service and on BBC Online. The channel had an educational aim which was modified later on in its life to offer documentaries. 2000 to 2011. In 2002, several television and radio channels were reorganized. BBC Knowledge was replaced by BBC4 and became the BBC Arts and Documentaries channel. CBBC, which had been a programming strand as children's BBC since 1985, was split into CBBC and CBeebies for younger children, with both news services getting a digital channel, the CBBC channel and CBeebies channel. In addition to the television channels, new digital radio stations were created: One Extra, 6 Music, and BBC 7. BBC One Extra was a sister station to Radio 1 and specialized in modern black music. BBC 6 Music specialized in alternative music genres, and BBC 7 specialized in archive, speech, and children's programming. The following few years resulted in repositioning of some channels to conform to a larger brand. In 2003, BBC Choice was replaced by BBC Three with programming for younger adults and shocking real-life documentaries. BBC News 24 became the BBC News channel in 2008, and BBC Radio 7 became BBC. In 2008, another channel was launched, BBC Alba, a Scottish Gaelic service. During this decade, the corporation began to sell off a number of its operational divisions to private owners. BBC Broadcast was spun off as a separate company in 2002, and in 2005, it was sold off to Australian-based Macquarie Capital Alliance Group and Macquarie Bank Limited and rebranded Red Bee Media. The BBC's IT, telephony, and broadcast technology were brought together as BBC Technology Limited in 2001, and the division was later sold to the German company Siemens IT Solutions and Services SIS. SIS was subsequently acquired from Siemens by the French company Atos. Further divestments included BBC Books sold to Random House in 2006, BBC Outside Broadcasts Limited sold in 2008 to Satellite Information Services, Costumes and Wigs stock sold in 2008 to Angels the Costumiers, and BBC Magazines sold to Immediate Media Company in 2011. After the sales of OB and Costumes, the remainder of BBC Resources was reorganized as BBC Studios and Post-Production, which continues today as a wholly owned subsidiary of the BBC. The 2004 Hutton inquiry and the subsequent report raised questions about the BBC journalistic standards and its impartiality. This led to resignations of senior management members at the time, including the then Director General, Greg Dyke. In January 2007, the BBC released minutes of the board meeting which led to Greg Dyke's resignation. Unlike the other departments of the BBC World Service was funded by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. The Foreign and Commonwealth Office, more commonly known as the Foreign Office or the FCO, is the British government department responsible for promoting the interests of the United Kingdom abroad. In 2006, BBC HD launched as an experimental service and became official in December 2007. The channel broadcast HD simulcasts of programs on BBC One, BBC Two, BBC Three, and BBC Four, as well as repeats of some older programs in HD. In 2010, an HD simulcast of BBC One launched, BBC One HD. The channel uses HD versions of BBC One's schedule and uses upscaled versions of programs not currently produced in HD. The BBC HD channel closed in March 2013 and was replaced by BBC Two HD in the same month. On 18 October 2007, BBC Director General Mark Thompson announced a controversial plan to make major cuts and reduce the size of the BBC as an organization. The plans included a reduction in posts of 2,500, including 1,800 redundancies, consolidating news operations, reducing programming output by 10%, and selling off the flagship television centre building in London. These plans have been fiercely opposed by unions who have threatened a series of strikes, however. On 20 October 2010, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, announced that the television license fee would be frozen at its current level until the end of the current charter in 2016. The same announcement revealed that the BBC would take on the full cost of running the BBC World Service and the BBC monitoring service from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and partially finance the Welsh broadcaster S4C. 2011 to present. Further cuts were announced on 6 October 2011, so the BBC could reach a total reduction in their budget of 20%, following the license fee freeze in October 2010, which included cutting staff by 2,000 and sending a further 1,000 to the Media City UK development in Salford, with BBC Three moving online only in 2016. BBC HD was closed on 26 March 2013 and replaced with an HD simulcast of BBC Two, however, flagship programs, other channels and full funding for CBBC and CBeebies would be retained. Numerous BBC facilities have been sold off, including New Broadcasting House on Oxford Road in Manchester. Many major departments have been relocated to Broadcasting House in central London and Media City UK in Salford, particularly since the closure of BBC Television Centre in March 2013. On 16 February 2016, the BBC Three television service was discontinued and replaced by a digital outlet under the same name, targeting its young adult audience with web series and other content. Under the new Royal Charter instituted 2017, the corporation must publish an annual report to Ofcom outlining its plans and public service obligations for the next year. In its 2017-18 report, released July 2017, the BBC announced plans to reinvent its output to better compete against commercial streaming services such as Netflix. These plans included increasing the diversity of its content on television and radio, a major increase in investments towards digital children's content, and plans to make larger investments in Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland to rise to the challenge of better reflecting and representing a changing UK. 2016, having to take on the £700 million cost for free TV licenses for the over -75 pensioners, and rapid inflation in drama and sport coverage costs was given as the reason. Duplication of management and content spending would be reduced, and there would be a review of BBC News. In 2020, the BBC announced a BBC News savings target of £80 million per year by 2022, involving about 500 reductions. BBC Director of News and Current Affairs Fran Unsworth said there would be further moves toward digital broadcasting, in part to attract back a youth audience and more pooling of reporters to stop separate teams covering the same news. In 2020, the BBC reported a £119 million deficit because of delays to cost reduction plans and the forthcoming ending of the remaining £253 million funding towards pensioner license fees would increase financial pressures. In January 2021, it was reported that former banker Richard Sharp would succeed David Clementi as chairman when he stepped down in February. Governance and corporate structure. The BBC is a statutory corporation, independent from direct government intervention, with its activities being overseen from April 2017 by the BBC Board and regulated by Ofcom. The chairman is Sir David Clementi. Charter. The BBC operates under a royal charter. The current charter came into effect on 1 January 2017 and runs until 31 December 2026. The 2017 charter abolished the BBC Trust and replaced it with external regulation by Ofcom, with governance by the BBC Board. Under the Royal Charter, the BBC must obtain a license from the Home Secretary. This license is accompanied by an agreement which sets the terms and conditions under which the BBC is allowed to broadcast. BBC Board. The BBC Board was formed in April 2017. It replaced the previous governing body, the BBC Trust, which in itself had replaced the Board of Governors in 2007. The board sets the strategy for the corporation assesses the performance of the BBC Executive Board in delivering the BBC services, and appoints the Director General. Regulation of the BBC is now the responsibility of Ofcom. The board consists of the following members. Executive Committee. The Executive Committee is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the broadcaster. Consisting of senior managers of the BBC, the committee meets once per month and is responsible for operational management and delivery of services within a framework set by the board and is chaired by the Director General, currently Tim Davie, who is Chief Executive and from 1994 Editor-in-Chief. Operational divisions. The corporation has the following in-house divisions, covering the BBC output and operations. Content, headed by Charlotte Moore, is in charge of the corporation's television channels, including the commissioning of programming. Radio and education, headed by James Purnell, is in charge of BBC radio and music content across the BBC under the BBC Music brand, including music programs on BBC television, events such as the BBC Proms, and the numerous orchestras such as the BBC Philharmonic, as well as the children's channel CBBC. News and current affairs, headed by Fran Unsworth, operates the BBC News operation, including the national, regional, and international output on television, radio, and online, as well as the output of the BBC Global News division. It is also in charge of the corporation's current affairs programming and has some responsibility for sports output. Design Plus Engineering, headed by Peter O'Kane, is in charge of digital output, such as BBC Online, BBC iPlayer, BBC Red Button service, and developing new technologies through BBC Research and Development. Managing Director Group, headed by Bob Shenanpan, BBC functions including finance, HR, strategy, security, and property. Nations and Regions, headed by Ken McQuarrie, is responsible for the corporation's divisions in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, the English regions. Commercial divisions. The BBC also operates a number of wholly owned commercial divisions. BBC Studios is the former in-house television production, entertainment, music and events, factual and scripted drama, and comedy. Following a merger with BBC Worldwide in April 2018, it also operates international channels and sells programs and merchandise in the UK and abroad to gain additional income that is returned to BBC programs. It is kept separate from the corporation due to its commercial nature. BBC World News Department is in charge of the production and distribution of its commercial global television channel. It works closely with the BBC News Group. It also works with BBC Studios, the channel's distributor. BBC Studio Works is also separate and officially owns and operates some of the BBC Studio facilities, such as the BBC Elstree Centre, leasing them out to productions from within and outside of the corporation. MFIV vetting policy. From as early as the 1930s until the 1990s, MFIV, the British Domestic Intelligence Service, engaged in vetting of applicants for BBC positions, a policy designed to keep out persons deemed subversive. In 1933, BBC Executive Colonel Alan Donnay began to meet the head of MFIV, Sir Vernon Kell, to informally trade information. From 1935, a formal arrangement was made wherein job applicants would be secretly vetted by MFIV. The BBC took up a policy of denying any suggestion of such a relationship by the press. The existence of MFIV itself was not officially acknowledged until the Security Service Act 1989. This relationship garnered wider public attention after an article by David Lee and Paul Lashmer appeared in The Observer in August 1985, revealing that MFIV had been vetting appointments, running operations out of Room 105 in Broadcasting House. At the time of the expose, the operation was being run by Ronnie Stonham. A memo from 1984 revealed that blacklisted organizations included the far-left Communist Party of Great Britain, the Socialist Workers' Party, the Workers' Revolutionary Party, and the Militant Tendency, as well as the far-right National Front and the British National Party. An association with one of these groups could result in a denial of a job application. In October 1985, the BBC announced that it would stop the vetting process, except for a few people in top roles, as well as those in charge of wartime broadcasting service, emergency broadcasting in event of a nuclear war, and staff in the BBC World Service. In 1990, following the Security Service Act 1989, vetting was further restricted to only those responsible for wartime broadcasting and those with access to secret government information. Michael Hodder, who succeeded Stonham, had the MFI vetting files sent to the BBC Information and Archives in Reading, Berkshire. Finances. The BBC has the second largest budget of any UK-based broadcaster, with an operating expenditure of £4.722 billion in 2013/14 compared with £6. Revenue. Revenue. The principal means of funding the BBC is through the television license, costing £154.50 per year per household since April 2019. Such a license is required to legally receive broadcast television across the UK, the Channel Islands, and the Isle of Man. No license is required to own a television used for other means or for sound-only radio sets, though a separate license for these was also required for non-TV households until 1971. The cost of a television license is set by the government and enforced by the criminal law. A discount is available for households with only black and white television sets. A 50% discount is also offered to people who are registered blind or severely visually impaired, and the license is completely free for any household containing anyone aged 75 or over. However, from August 2020, the license fee will only be waived if over 75 and receiving pension credit. The BBC pursues its license fee collection and enforcement under the trading name TV licensing. The revenue is collected privately by Capita, an outside agency, and is paid into the Central Government Consolidated Fund, a process defined in the Communications Act 2003. Funds are then allocated by the Department for Culture, Media and Sport (DCMS) and the Treasury, and approved by Parliament via legislation. Additional revenues are paid by the Department for Work and Pensions to compensate for subsidized licenses for eligible over-75-year-olds. The license fee is classified as a tax, and its evasion is a criminal offense. Since 1991, collection and enforcement of the license fee has been the responsibility of the BBC in its role as TV licensing authority. The BBC carries out surveillance mostly using subcontractors on properties under the auspices of the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000 and may conduct searches of a property using a search warrant. According to TV licensing, 216,900 people in the UK were caught watching TV without a license in 2018/19. License fee evasion makes up around 1/10 of all cases prosecuted in magistrates' courts, representing 0.3% of court time. Income from commercial enterprises and from overseas sales of its catalogue of programs has substantially increased over recent years, with BBC Worldwide contributing some £243 million to the BBC core public service business. According to the BBC 2018/19 annual report, its total income was £4.88 billion for £489 million, a decrease from £5,062 million in 2017/18, partly owing to a 3.7% phased reduction in government funding for free, which can be broken down as follows: £3.690 billion in license fees collected from householders, £1 199 billion from the BBC commercial businesses, and government grants, some of which will cease in 2020. The license fee has, however, attracted criticism. It has been argued that in an age of multi-stream, multi-channel availability, an obligation to pay a license fee is no longer appropriate. The BBC use of private sector company Capita Group to send letters to premises not paying the license fee has been criticised, especially as there have been cases where such letters have been sent to premises which are up to date with their payments or do not require a TV license. The BBC uses advertising campaigns to inform customers of the requirement to pay the license fee. Past campaigns have been criticised by Conservative MP Boris Johnson and former MP Anne Widdecombe for having a threatening nature and language used to scare evaders into paying. Audio clips and television broadcasts are used to inform listeners of the BBC Comprehensive Database. There are a number of pressure groups campaigning on the issue of the license fee. The majority of the BBC commercial output comes from its commercial arm BBC Worldwide, who sell programs abroad and exploit key brands for merchandise. Of their 2012/13 sales, 27% were centered on the 5 key super brands of Doctor Who, Top Gear, Strictly Come Dancing, known as Dancing with the Stars internationally, the BBC Archive of Natural History programming collected under the umbrella of BBC Earth, and the now sold travel guide brand Lonely Planet. Expenditure. The following expenditure figures are from 2012/13 and show the expenditure of each service they are obliged to provide. A significantly large portion of the BBC income is spent on the corporation's television and radio services, with each service having a different budget based upon their content. Headquarters and regional offices. Broadcasting House in Portland Place, London, is the official headquarters of the BBC. It is home to 6 of the 10 BBC national radio networks: BBC Radio 1, BBC Radio 1 Extra, BBC Asian Network, BBC Radio 3, BBC Radio 4, and BBC Radio 4 Extra. It is also the home of BBC News, which relocated to the building from BBC Television Centre in 2013. On the front of the building are statues of Prospero and Ariel, characters from William Shakespeare's play The Tempest, sculpted by Eric Gill. Renovation of Broadcasting House began in 2002 and was completed in 2012. Until it closed at the end of March 2013, BBC Television was based at BBC Television Centre, a purpose-built television facility and the second built in the country, located in White City, London. This facility has been host to a number of famous guests and programs through the years, and its name and image is familiar with many British citizens. Nearby, the BBC White City complex contains numerous program offices housed in Centre House, the Media Centre and Broadcast Centre. It is in this area around Shepherd's Bush that the majority of BBC employees work. As part of a major reorganisation of BBC property, the entire BBC News operation relocated from the News Centre at BBC Television Centre to the refurbished Broadcasting House to create what is being described as one of the world's largest live broadcast centres. The BBC News Channel and BBC World News relocated to the premises in early 2013. Broadcasting House is now also home to most of the BBC national radio stations and the BBC World Service. The major part of this plan involved the demolition of the 2 post-war extensions to the building and construction of an extension designed by Sir Richard McCormack of MJP Architects. This move concentrated the BBC London operations, allowing them to sell Television Centre. In addition to the scheme above, the BBC is in the process of making and producing more programs outside London, involving production centres such as Belfast, Cardiff, Glasgow, Newcastle, and, most notably, in Greater Manchester, as part of the BBC North Project scheme, where several major departments, including BBC Northwest, as well as the 2 main sites in London Broadcasting House and White City, there are 7 other important BBC production centres in the UK, mainly specialising in different productions. Cardiff is home to BBC Cymru Wales, which specialises in drama production. Open since 2012 and containing 7 new studios, Roathlock is notable as the home of productions such as Doctor Who and Casualty. Broadcasting House Belfast, home to BBC Northern Ireland, specializes in original drama and comedy, and has taken part in many co-productions with independent companies and notably with RT in the Republic of Ireland. BBC Scotland, based in Pacific Quay, Glasgow, is a large producer of programs for the network, including several quiz shows. In England, the larger regions also produce some programming. Previously, the largest hub of BBC programming from the regions is BBC North West. At present, they produce all religious and ethical programs on the BBC, as well as other programs such as A Question of Sport. However, this is to be merged and expanded under the BBC North project, which involved the region moving from new broadcasting house, Manchester, to Media City, UK. BBC Midlands, based at the Mailbox in Birmingham, also produces drama and contains the headquarters for the English regions and the BBC daytime output. Other production centres include Broadcasting House Bristol, home of BBC West and famously the BBC Natural History Unit, and to a lesser extent, Quarry Hill in Leeds, home of BBC Yorkshire. There are also many smaller local and regional studios throughout the UK operating the BBC regional television services and the BBC local radio stations. The BBC also operates several news gathering centres in various locations around the world, which provide news coverage of that region to the national and international news operations. Technology auto service. In 2004, the BBC contracted out its former BBC Technology division to the German engineering and electronics company Siemens IT Solutions and Services SIS, outsourcing its IT, telephony, and broadcast technology systems. When Otto's Origin acquired the SIS division from Siemens in December 2010 for EU £850,720, a BBC support contract also passed to Otto's, and in July 2011, the BBC announced to staff that its technology support would become an Otto's service. Siemens staff working on the BBC contract were transferred to Otto's. The BBC information technology systems are now managed by Otto's. In 2011, the BBC Chief Financial Officer Zoran Potel stated to the House of Commons Public Accounts Committee that, following criticism of the BBC management of major IT projects with Siemens such as the Digital Media Initiative, the BBC partnership with Otto's would be instrumental in achieving cost savings of around £64 million as part of the BBC. In 2012, the BBC Chief Technology Officer, John Linwood, expressed confidence in service improvements to the BBC technology provision brought about by Otto's. He also stated that supplier accountability had been strengthened following some high-profile technology failures which had taken place during the partnership with Siemens. Services. Television. The BBC operates several television channels nationally and internationally. BBC One and BBC Two are the flagship television channels. Others include cultural and documentary channel BBC Four, news channels BBC News and the BBC World News, parliamentary channel BBC Parliament, and two children's channels, CBBC and CBeebies. Digital television is now entrenched in the UK with analog transmission completely phased out as of December 2012. It also operates the internet television service BBC Three, which ceased broadcasting as a linear television channel in February 2016. BBC One is a regionalized TV service which provides opt-outs throughout the day for local news and other local programming. These variations are more pronounced in the BBC nations, i.e. Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, where the presentation is mostly carried out locally on BBC One and Two, and where program schedules can vary greatly from that of the network. BBC Two variations exist in the nations, however. English regions today rarely have the option to opt out, as regional programming now only exists on BBC One. In 2019, the Scottish variation of BBC Two ceased operation and was replaced with the networked version in favour of the BBC Scotland channel. BBC Two was also the first channel to be transmitted on 625 lines in 1964, then carry a small-scale regular colour service from 1967. BBC One would follow in November 1969. A new Scottish Gaelic television channel, BBC Alba, was launched in September 2008. It is also the first multi-genre channel to come entirely from Scotland, with almost all of its programs made in Scotland. The service was initially only available via satellite, but since June 2011 has been available to viewers in Scotland on Freeview and cable television. The BBC currently operates HD simulcasts of all its nationwide channels, with the exception of BBC Parliament. Until 26 March 2013, a separate channel called BBC HD was available in place of BBC Two HD. It launched on 15 May 2006, following a 12-month trial of the broadcasts. It became a proper channel in 2007 and screened HD programs as simulcasts of the main network, or as repeats. The corporation has been producing programs in the format for many years and stated that it hoped to produce 100% of new programs in HDTV by 2010. On 3 November 2010, a high-definition simulcast of BBC One was launched, entitled BBC One HD, and BBC Two HD launched on 26 March 2013, replacing BBC HD. Scotland's new television channel, BBC Scotland, launched in February 2019. In the Republic of Ireland, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Switzerland, the BBC channels are available in a number of ways. In these countries, digital and cable operators carry a range of BBC channels. These include BBC One, BBC Two, BBC Four, and BBC World News, although viewers in the Republic of Ireland may receive BBC services via overspill from transmitters in Northern Ireland or Wales, or via deflectors transmitters in the Republic which rebroadcast broadcasts from the UK received off-air or from digital. Since 1975, the BBC has also provided its TV programs to the British Forces Broadcasting Service (BFBS), allowing members of UK military serving abroad to watch them on 4 dedicated TV channels. From 27 March 2013, BFBS will carry versions of BBC One and BBC Two, which will include children's programming from CBBC, as well as carrying programming from BBC Three on a new channel called BFBS Extra. Since 2008, all the BBC channels are available to watch online through the BBC iPlayer service. This online streaming ability came about following experiments with live streaming involving streaming certain channels in the UK. In February 2014, Director General Tony Hall announced that the corporation needed to save £100 million. In March 2014, the BBC confirmed plans for BBC Three to become an internet-only channel. BBC Genome Project. In December 2012, the BBC completed a digitization exercise, scanning the listings of all BBC programs from an entire run of about 4,500 copies of the Radio Times magazine from the first 1923 issue to 2009 later listings already being held electronically. The BBC Genome Project, with an earlier 10 months of listings are to be obtained from other sources. They identified around 5 million programs, involving 8.5 million actors, presenters, writers, and technical staff. The Genome Project was opened to public access on 15 October 2014, with corrections to OCR errors and changes to advertised schedules being crowdsourced. Radio. The BBC has 10 radio stations serving the whole of the UK, a further 7 stations in the national regions Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, and 39 other local stations serving defined areas of England. Of the 10 national stations, 5 are major stations and are available on FM and / or AIM as well as on DAB and online. These are BBC Radio 1, offering new music and popular styles, and being notable for its chart show BBC Radio 2, playing adult contemporary, country, and soul music amongst many other genres, BBC Radio 3, presenting classical and jazz music together with some spoken word programming of a cultural nature. In addition to these 5 stations, the BBC runs a further 5 stations that broadcast on DAB and online only. These stations supplement and expand on the big 5 stations and were launched in 2002. BBC Radio 1 Extra Sisters Radio 1 and broadcasts new black music and urban tracks. BBC Radio 5 Live Sports Extra Sisters 5 Live and offers extra sport analysis, including broadcasting sports that previously were not covered. BBC Radio 6 Music offers alternative music genres and is notable as a platform for new artists. BBC Radio 7, later renamed BBC Radio 4 Extra, provided archive drama, comedy, and children's programming. Following the change to Radio 4 Extra, the service has dropped a defined children's strand in favor of family-friendly drama and comedy. In addition, new programs to complement Radio 4 programs were introduced, such as Ambridge Extra and Desert Island Discs Revisited. The final station is the BBC Asian Network, providing music, talk, and news to this section of the community. This station evolved out of local radio stations serving certain areas, and as such this station is available on medium wave frequency in some areas of the Midlands. As well as the national stations, the BBC also provides 40 BBC local radio stations in England and the Channel Islands, each named for and covering a particular city and its surrounding area, e.g. BBC Radio Bristol, county or region, e.g. BBC Three Counties Radio, or geographical area, e.g. BBC Radio Solent. A further 6 stations broadcast in what the BBC terms the national regions, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. These are BBC Radio Wales in English, BBC Radio Cymru in Welsh, BBC Radio Scotland in English, BBC Radio Nain Gaedhil in Scottish Gaelic, BBC Radio Ulster, and BBC Radio Foyle, the latter being an opt-out station from Radio Ulster for the northwest of Northern Ireland. The BBC UK national channels are also broadcast in the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man, although these Crown dependencies are outside the UK, and in the former there are 2 local stations, BBC Guernsey and BBC Radio Jersey. There is no BBC local radio station, however, in the Isle of Man, partly because the island has long been served by the popular independent commercial station, Manx Radio, which predates the existence of BBC local radio. BBC services in the dependencies are financed from television license fees, which are set at the same level as those payable in the UK, although collected locally. This is the subject of some controversy in the Isle of Man since, as well as having no BBC local radio service, the island also lacks a local television news service analogous. For a worldwide audience, the BBC World Service provides news, current affairs, and information in 28 languages, including English, around the world, and is available in over 150 capital cities. It is broadcast worldwide on shortwave radio, DAB, and online, and has an estimated weekly audience of 192 million, and its websites have an audience of 38 million people per week. Since 2005, it is also available on DAB in the UK, a step not taken before due to the way it is funded. The service is funded by a parliamentary grant and aid administered by the Foreign Office. However, following the government's spending review in 2011, this funding will cease, and it will be funded for the first time through the license fee. In recent years, some services of the World Service have been reduced. The Thai service ended in 2006, as did the Eastern European languages, with resources diverted instead into the new BBC Arabic television. Historically, the BBC was the only legal radio broadcaster based in the UK mainland until 1967, when University Radio York URY, then under the name Radio York, was launched as the first, and now oldest, legal independent radio station in the country. However, The BBC did not enjoy a complete monopoly before this, as several continental stations, such as Radio Luxembourg, had broadcast programs in English to Britain since the 1930s, and the Isle of Man-based Manx Radio began in 1964. Today, despite the advent of commercial radio, BBC radio stations remain among the most listened to in the country, with Radio 2 having the largest audience share, up to 16.8% in 2011-12, and Radios 1 and 4 ranked second and third in terms of weekly reach. BBC programming is also available to other services and in other countries. Since 1943, the BBC has provided radio programming to the British Forces Broadcasting Service, which broadcasts in countries where British troops are stationed. BBC Radio 1 is also carried in the United States and Canada on Sirius XM Radio online streaming only. The BBC is a patron of the Radio Academy. News. BBC News is the largest broadcast news gathering operation in the world, providing services to BBC domestic radio as well as television networks such as the BBC News, BBC Parliament, and BBC World News. In addition to this, news stories are available on the BBC Red Button service and BBC News Online. In addition to this, the BBC has been developing new ways to access BBC News, and as a result, has launched the service on BBC Mobile, making it accessible to mobile phones and PDA, as well as developing alerts by email, on digital television, and on computers through a desktop alert. Ratings figures suggest that during major incidents such as the 7 July 2005 London bombings or royal events, the UK audience overwhelmingly turns to the BBC coverage as opposed to its commercial rivals. On 7 July 2005, BBC News received some 1 billion total hits on the day of the event, including all images, text, and HTML, serving some 5.5 terabytes of data. At peak times during the day, there were 40,000 page requests per second for the BBC News website. The previous day's announcement of the 2012 Olympics being awarded to London caused a peak of around 5 Gbps. The previous all-time high at BBC Online was caused by the announcement of the Michael Jackson verdict, which used 7.2 Gbps. Internet. The BBC Online presence includes a comprehensive news website and archive. The BBC first official online service was the BBC Networking Club, which was launched on 11 May 1994. The service was subsequently relaunched as BBC Online in 1997, before being renamed BBCI, then BBC Company-UC, before it was rebranded back as BBC Online. The website is funded by the license fee, but uses GIP technology, allowing advertisements to be carried on the site when viewed outside of the UK. The BBC claims the site to be Europe's most popular content-based site and states that 13.2 million people in the UK visit the site's more than 2 million pages each day. The center of the website is the home page, which features a modular layout. Users can choose which modules and which information is displayed on their home page, allowing the user to customize it. This system was first launched in December 2007, becoming permanent in February 2008, and has undergone a few aesthetical changes since then. The home page then has links to other microsites, such as BBC News Online, Sport, Weather, TV, and Radio. As part of the site, every program on BBC television or radio is given its own page, with bigger programs getting their own microsite, and as a result it is often common for viewers and listeners to be told website addresses URL for the program website. Another large part of the site also allows users to watch and listen to most television and radio output live and for 7 days after broadcast using the BBC iPlayer platform, which launched on 27 July 2007 and initially used peer-to-peer and DRM technology to deliver both radio and TV content of the last 7 days for offline use. Also, through participation in the Creative Archive License Group, BBC Company-UC allowed legal downloads of selected archive material via the Internet. The BBC has often included learning as part of its online service, running services such as BBC Jam, Learning Zone class clips, and also runs services such as BBC WebWise and for BBC Jam was a free online service delivered through broadband and narrowband connections, providing high-quality interactive resources designed to stimulate learning at home and at school. Initial content was made available. In January 2006, however, BBC Jam was suspended on 20 March 2007 due to allegations made to the European Commission that it was damaging the interests of the commercial sector of the industry. In recent years, some major online companies and politicians have complained that BBC Online receives too much funding from the television license, meaning that other websites are unable to compete with the vast amount of advertising-free online content available on BBC Online. Some have proposed that the amount of license fee money spent on BBC Online should be reduced, either being replaced with funding from advertisements or subscriptions, or a reduction in the amount of content available on the site. In response to this, the BBC carried out an investigation and has now set in motion a plan to change the way it provides its online services. BBC Online will now attempt to fill in gaps in the market and will guide users to other websites for currently existing market provision. For example, instead of providing local events information and timetables, users will be guided to outside websites already providing that information. Part of this plan included the BBC closing some of its websites and rediverting money to redevelop other parts. On 26 February 2010, The Times claimed that Mark Thompson, Director General of the BBC, proposed that the BBC web output should be cut by 50%, with online staff numbers and budgets reduced by 25% in a bid to scale back BBC operations and allow commercial rivals more room. On 2 March 2010, the BBC reported that it will cut its website spending by 25% and close BBC Six Music and Asian Network, as part of Mark Thompson's plans to make a smaller, fitter BBC for the digital age. Interactive television. BBC Red Button is the brand name for the BBC interactive digital television services, which are available through Freeview Digital Terrestrial, as well as Freesat, Sky Satellite, and Virgin Media Cable. Unlike CFAX, the service's analog counterpart, BBC Red Button is able to display full-color graphics, photographs, and video, as well as programs, and can be accessed from any BBC channel. The service carries news, weather, and sport 24 hours a day, but also provides extra features related to programs specific at that time. Examples include viewers to play along at home to game shows, to give voice and vote on opinions to issues, as used alongside programs such as Question Time. At some points in the year, when multiple sporting events occur, some coverage of less mainstream sports or games are frequently placed on the red button for viewers to watch. Frequently, other features are added unrelated to programs being broadcast at that time, such as the broadcast of the Doctor Who animated episode Dreamland in November 2009. Music. The BBC employs 5 staff orchestras, a professional choir, and supports 2 amateur choruses, based in BBC venues across the UK, the BBC Symphony Orchestra, the BBC Singers and BBC Symphony Chorus based in London, the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra in Glasgow, the BBC Philharmonic in Salford, BBC. It also buys a selected number of broadcasts from the Ulster Orchestra in Belfast and the BBC Big Band. The BBC Proms have been produced by the BBC every year since 1927, stepping in to fund the popular classical music festival when music publishers Chappell & Co. withdrew their support. In 1930, the newly formed BBC Symphony Orchestra gave all 49 proms and have performed at every last night of the proms since then. Nowadays, the BBC orchestras and choirs are the backbone of the proms, giving around 40–50% of all performances each season. Many famous musicians of every genre have played at the BBC, such as The Beatles Live at the BBC is one of their many albums. The BBC is also responsible for the broadcast of Glastonbury Festival, Reading Festival, and United Kingdom coverage of the Eurovision Song Contest, a show with which the broadcaster has been associated for over 60 years. The BBC also operates the division of BBC Audiobooks, sometimes found in association with Chivers Audiobooks. The BBC operates other ventures in addition to their broadcasting arm. In addition to broadcasting output on television and radio, some programs are also displayed on the BBC Big screens located in several central city locations. The BBC and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office also jointly run BBC Monitoring, which monitors radio, television, the press, and the Internet worldwide. The BBC also developed several computers throughout the 1980s, most notably the BBC Micro, which ran alongside the corporation's educational aims and programming. In 1951, in conjunction with Oxford University Press, the BBC published the BBC Hymn Book, which was intended to be used by radio listeners to follow hymns being broadcast. The book was published both with and without music, the music edition being entitled the BBC Hymn Book with Music. The book contained 542 popular hymns. CFAX. The BBC provided the world's first teletext service called CFAX, near homonymous with CFAX, on 23 September 1974 until 23 October 2012 on the BBC One analog channel. It showed informational pages such as news, sport, and the weather. On New Year's Eve in 1974, competition from ITV Oracle tried to compete with CFAX. Oracle closed on New Year's Eve, 1992. During its lifetime, it attracted millions of viewers, right up to 2012, prior to the digital switchover in the United Kingdom. It ceased transmission at 23:32:19 BST on 23 October 2012 after 38 years. Since then, the BBC Red Button service has provided a digital-like information system that replaced CFAX. BritBox, SOX. In 2016, the BBC, in partnership with fellow UK broadcasters ITV and Channel 4, who later withdrew from the project, set up Project Kangaroo to develop an international online streaming service to rival services such as Netflix and Hulu. During the development stages, Britflix was touted as a potential name. However, the service eventually launched as BritBox in March 2017. The online platform shows a catalogue of classic BBC and ITV shows, as well as making a number of programs available shortly after their UK broadcast. As of 2021, BritBox is available in the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, and, more recently, South Africa, with the potential availability for new markets in the future. Commercial activities. BBC Studios, formerly BBC Worldwide, is the wholly owned commercial subsidiary of the BBC, responsible for the commercial exploitation of BBC programs and other properties, including a number of television stations throughout the world. It was formed following the restructuring of its predecessor, BBC Enterprises, in 1995. The company owns and administers a number of commercial stations around the world, operating in a number of territories and on a number of different platforms. The channel BBC Entertainment shows current and archive entertainment programming to viewers in Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, with the BBC Studios channels BBC America and BBC Canada joint venture with Chorus Entertainment showing similar programming in the North America region and BBC Up in the Australasia region. The company also airs two channels aimed at children, an international CBeebies channel and BBC Kids, a joint venture with Knowledge Network Corporation, which airs programs under the CBeebies and BBC K Bronze. The company also runs the channels BBC Knowledge, broadcasting factual and learning programs, and BBC Lifestyle, broadcasting programs based on themes of food, style, and well-being. In addition to this, BBC Studios runs an international version of the channel BBC HD and provides HD simulcasts of the channels BBC Knowledge and BBC America. BBC Studios also distributes the 24-hour international news channel BBC World News. The station is separate from BBC Studios to maintain the station's neutral point of view, but is distributed by BBC Studios. The channel itself is the oldest surviving entity of its kind and has 50 foreign news bureaus and correspondents in nearly all countries in the world. As officially surveyed, it is available to more than 294 million households, significantly more than CNN, estimated 200 million. In addition to these international channels, BBC Studios also owns the UP network of 7 channels. These channels contain BBC archive programming to be rebroadcast on their respective channels: Alibi crime dramas, Dave's Slogan, the home of witty banter, Drama, launched in 2013, Eden, Nature, Gold, Comedy, W Entertainment, and Yesterday, History programming. In addition to these channels, many BBC programs are sold via BBC Studios to foreign television stations, with comedy, documentaries, and historical drama productions being the most popular. In addition, BBC Television News appears nightly on many public broadcasting service stations in the United States, as do reruns of BBC programs such as EastEnders, and in New Zealand on TVNZ1. In addition to programming, BBC Studios produces material to accompany programs. The company maintained the publishing arm of the BBC, BBC Magazines, which published the Radio Times, as well as a number of magazines that support BBC programming such as BBC Top Gear, BBC Good Food, BBC Sky at Night, BBC History, BBC Wildlife, and BBC Music. BBC Magazines was sold to Exponent Private Equity in 2011, which merged it with Origin Publishing, previously owned by BBC Worldwide, between 2004 and 2006 to form Immediate Media Company. BBC Studios also publishes books to accompany programs such as Doctor Who under the BBC Books brand, a publishing imprint majority owned by Random House. Soundtrack albums, talking books, and sections of radio broadcasts are also sold under the brand BBC Records, with DVD also being sold and licensed in large quantities to consumers both in the UK and abroad under the 2Entertain brand. Archive programming and classical music recordings are sold under the brand BBC Legends. Cultural significance. Until the development, popularisation, and domination of television, radio was the broadcast medium upon which people in the United Kingdom relied. It reached into every home in the land and simultaneously united the nation, an important factor during the Second World War. The BBC introduced the world's first high-definition 405-line television service in 1936. It suspended its television service during the Second World War and until 1946, but remained the only television broadcaster in the UK. This heralded the transformation of television into a popular and dominant medium. Nevertheless, throughout the 1950s, radio still remained the dominant source of broadcast comedy. Further, the BBC was the only legal radio broadcaster until 1968, when URY obtained their first license. Despite the advent of commercial television and radio with competition from ITV Channel 4 and Sky, the BBC has remained one of the main elements in British popular culture through its obligation to produce TV and radio programs for mass audiences. However, the arrival of BBC Two allowed the BBC also to make programs for minority interests in drama, documentaries, current affairs, entertainment, and sport. Examples cited include the television series Civilization, Doctor Who, I, Claudius, Monty Python's Flying Circus, Pot Black, and Tonight, but other examples can be given in each of these fields, as shown by the BBC entries in the British Film Institute's 2000 list of the 100 greatest British television programmes, with the BBC acclaimed Top of the Pops, the world's longest-running weekly music show, first aired in January 1964, with the Rolling Stones the first to perform on it. Some BBC shows have had a direct impact on society. For example, the Great British Bake Off is credited with reinvigorating interest in baking throughout the UK, with stores reporting sharp rises in sales of baking ingredients and accessories. The export of BBC programs both through services like the BBC World Service and BBC World News, as well as through the channels operated by BBC Worldwide, means that audiences can consume BBC productions worldwide. The term BBC English was used as an alternative name for received pronunciation, and the English Pronouncing Dictionary uses the term BBC pronunciation to label its recommendations. However, the BBC itself now makes more use of regional accents in order to reflect the diversity of the UK, while continuing to expect clarity and fluency of its presenters. From its starchy beginnings, the BBC has also become more inclusive and now attempts to accommodate the interests of all strata of society and all minorities because they all pay the license fee. Colloquial terms. Older domestic UK audiences often refer to the BBC as the Beeb, a nickname originally coined by Peter Sellers on The Goon Show in the 1950s, when he referred to the BBC. It was then borrowed, shortened and popularized by radio DJ Kenny Everett. David Bowie's recording sessions at the BBC. Another nickname, now less commonly used, is Auntie, said to originate from the old-fashioned Auntie knows best attitude, or the idea of aunties and uncles who are present in the background of one's life, but possibly a reference to the aunties and uncles who presented children's programs in the early days, in the days when John Reith, the BBC first Director General, was in. The term auntie for the BBC is often credited to radio disc jockey Jack Jackson. To celebrate the 50th anniversary of the BBC, the song Auntie was released in 1972. The two nicknames have also been used together as Auntie Beeb. Controversy and criticism. Logo and symbols.